You're listening to episode 110 of the D6 podcast.
I don't know anything more important in our society or in the kingdom of God than to help the church, help the family.
Discipleship is not an event, it's a way of life.
And one day it just hit me that discipleship at home was not about doing more. It was about inviting Christ into what we were already doing.
The goal of family ministry is not families sitting on the couch holding hands and singing Kumbaya. The ultimate goal is families that love God, love people, and make disciples of all peoples.
So that's why you're here. You're here to say 1 hour a week, as significant and as awesome as it is, we know that it's not enough and we want to be intentional with every hour.
You're listening to the D6 podcast. Here's your hosts, Ron Hunter and Jeremy Lee.
This is the family ministry podcast that helps you connect the church and home. And not only, Ron, have we made it to episode 100, we're now at 110. We're at we're like cruising now towards 200.
We are indeed. We're heading in the right direction. And, you're always asking on these episodes for feedback. I think I've gotten some hate mail.
What happened?
Yeah. In a couple of episodes back, actually 4 or 5, we talked about me moving over to a PC.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You can't believe, I have been Mac since year 2 of Mac and Apple.
Have my Mac friends come into your inbox and thrown some shade at you? Because that would be amazing. Way to go, Mac friends.
Absolutely. And, even friends I've had most of my life, they're like, Ron, they're really giving me shame. So I think it's really important we update our listeners that while I ventured down this road for about 10 days, 2 weeks, I realized I couldn't do it. I had to go back. But, I had to go out and venture. I had to give the satisfaction to our IT guy who wanted me to give it an attempt. So anyway, for all the listeners who have written me off the list, kind of put me back on your Mac Christmas card list.
You are hip again, Ron.
Yeah,
it happened.
I tell you what, I got tired of carrying around 2 computers, one for how I wanted to do things and one for how I wanted to file things.
Take that, PC.
Yeah, telling you.
Steve Jobs over Bill Gates all day, every day.
Well, the truth is, I'm just not smart enough to run a PC. That's the end of the day what it came back to.
Fair enough. Hey, it's hot. It's summer.
Yes.
That means there's a couple of things that are happening that I want to talk about real quick with you. Number one, we have a lot of ministers. Well, this is for basically children's and youth ministers for the most part. Those are a large part of our audience. I know that it's not all of them. But they're about to go to camp. It's camp season.
Summer is their busy time.
I wanted to ask you, did you go to camp when you were little?
I did. And we were in rustic cabins without air conditioner with these fold-up, prop-up windows with screens.
Yes.
And this is in Florida where it is warm.
Yes.
How about you? Were you in camp?
See, that's camp right there,
That
man.
is camp.
I cut my teeth. My first ministry job was 18 years old at RA camp in Kosciuszko, Mississippi, and we had pitched tents where we actually slept in the pitched tents with the kids, and when the kids would wet the bed, it was my job to change their sheets. That was serious work.
That is. And in Mississippi, the state bird is the mosquito.
Yes. And I had much fellowship with the mosquito during that summer. But here's the thing. That was really camp. But now camp is sissified. They play games. They go to the beach.
They have air conditioning.
They have let's go to a resort for camp.
They do. My kids went down, you're right, down to Destin. They were in these high-rise. They were on the beach in the afternoon, and it wasn't camp at all.
No. We and you, we're just some grumpy old men, a little bit upset today about the fact that camps are getting sissified. But if you're going to go ahead and sissify your camp.
We're like the 2 Muppets in the balcony, aren't we?
That's us.
That's us today.
Camp?
That's right. Get on with it.
It's not camp, it's vacation. You got to work at camp.
That's
Camp's
right.
got to hurt.
You got to bleed a little bit.
Okay, so if you're going to sissify camp, then we got a resource to help you do it because we're just going to... It's called Help My Games Stink because you need to have fun at camp, evidently. And our man John Forrest has put out that awesome book. If and one of the reasons we're mentioning this is because this book is... What's funny is you do such deep theologically based books, and then you come
Then
along
we
with
have
Help My Game Stink.
I know.
And like everybody wants it. They're loving it, right?
They are absolutely loving it. It's one of the fastest selling books we published in the last few months. And, if I were a person heading off to camp and I were in charge of games and fun activities, I wouldn't want people picking apart my games because you're doing the same ones you've done for, 40 million years. So I would want to pick this book up. I'd want to give the kids something fresh and something fun. And you and I have talked about this book before. While it is about games, when you read it, you're going to get into the heart of the author, where he's talking about that games are not meant to just be a playful activity like we just made fun of youth camps today, but as a way to connect to the kids' hearts in order to transition into a good lesson. And in fact, the last portion of the book will blow you away with the author's insight on this topic of how to connect to their hearts and how to deal with problems in the youth group.
Yep, John is solid. He's funny. He knows how to play games, but he's also solid theologically. We can vouch for that for sure.
That's right. So don't pack your deodorant for youth camp, but pack this book instead.
Yeah, somebody else I'm willing to vouch for is Dan Lovaglia. Lovaglia.
You love saying that name, don't you?
Always and forever. I love Dan. He is out of Chicago. That's what I think about. When I think about Dan, I think about Chicago. He's awesome. He's an awesome guy. Dan is going to talk to us about the secret to serving frenzied families.
Yes.
Man, Dan has done a lot in the world of small group leader training. He's done a lot. He's an author. He's a consultant. The man just is smart. He has tons of friends in the ministry world. He is a joy to talk to. So that first interview today is going to be amazing. And then we talked to Pauline Dillard.
That's right. And, this really transitions from frenzied to a very serious topic that you and Pauline got into.
Yeah,
but
she kind of surprised me with this topic.
Yeah.
I remember telling you at D6, I'm like, hey, I didn't realize we were going to be talking about this, but it's pretty
It is.
intense.
Now, my wife and I went through what you're going to be talking about, and I'll tell you, nobody really talks about it. And when it occurred to us, people came out of the woodwork to go, hey, we know where you are. We've gone through the same thing.
I love that.
We've kind of teased it.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's a good tease.
So leave it there.
Another thing I want to tease real quick, because we are just coming up on Father's Day. I want to talk to the ministers out there who are just like me, and on the Myers-Briggs, you're not a J, you're a P. You're that guy who is not as detailed, or girl as not as detailed as you need to be, and you have forgotten about Father's Day, and you don't have anything prepared for it for your fathers in your church. We got you covered. I think we do. Can we get them express shipping on this? I don't know.
Depending on where you live in the country, we can get it there in time.
You may call and beg for good shipping. There's a Father's Day resource you guys have that they can just basically comes in the box and they hand it out. They don't have to do anything else, but
That's
can. It's called A Father's Legacy. So talk
Yes.
to him real quick about that before we head to break.
Yeah, we publish parenting books and, family ministry books. So we went through and pulled out some of the very best pull quotes from all of our books and published it in a tiny little booklet that a father can thumb through and just catch these inspirational quotes. They're teachable moments for the dads to think about and remind them of what their role is and the significance of their role, and to encourage them. And these books are very inexpensive, and it's a good way to put them into the hands of every father in your church. If you bought one, it's $2.99. But if you call into our customer service line or online, we have them in bulk quantities. Make this very easy for you to purchase them.
And if you use the code Happy Father's Day, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, you are kidding on that one. That's funny. I love it. And by the way, while we're promoting the book, we also have bookmarks this year. So maybe you want a bookmark. It works really well in your Kindle. Throw that physical bookmark into your electronic.
No,
I know.
Hey, it won't bust the budget. It helps you, especially if you don't have a plan right now for Father's Day and you're listening to this and you're going, "Oh, I forgot about that." It's time. We got something for you. You can go to d6family.com. Go to the shop part of the navigation bar and you'll be set. But we're going to get set for our next interview with Dan Lovaglia. Coming up after the break, we're going to be talking about the secret to serving frenzied families.
We've all been there. Your buddy sent you this can't-miss icebreaker idea. It even involves a tiny bit of pyrotechnics, he said. It sounded great, but the next day, as you stare at the empty places your eyebrows used to be, you think, hey, there has to be a better way to get their attention that doesn't involve so many fire trucks. Is this you? If it is, I'm John Forrest, and I'm here to help. I've written Help! My Game Stink. It's 52 engaging ideas that will get the students' attention without burning the church down. Check it out at the store at d6family.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, our next guest just told me he can sing like Axl Rose. See, I wish you guys could hear the conversations before we get started.
Wouldn't that be fun?
Okay, so here I go. I've said our guest's last name about 47 times, and I very rarely get it right, but I'm going to go for it again. Welcome our guest, Dan Lovaglia. Lovaglia?
All right, here we go. This is real simple. Real simple. You ready? You ready? Love. All. Yeah.
Oh, all.
Like I love all ya.
Oh.
I don't love just all y'all. I love like all y'all.
Okay, do over. Okay, no, we don't have to do over. It's okay. I can let people see my mistakes. But here we go. Welcome, everyone. Our guest, Dan Lovaglia. Thank you for being here, sir.
Hey, I'm glad to be here.
And thanks, you for
Jeremy.
The name education. Dan is the author of Relational Children's Ministry, and he's a staffing coaching associate at Slingshot Group. He equips church leaders nationwide through writing, speaking, consulting, and training. You can connect with Dan. I know this for a fact because I have done so. You can connect with him on Twitter and Facebook at Dan Lovaglia.
It's true. Thanks, Jeremy.
No problem. So it's great to have you back. You're leading a seminar here called The Secret to Serving Frenzied Families. And great title, by the way. Love it.
Well, I left my frenzied family to be here. You know, the stuff
I'm
seeing stuff scroll on Facebook. I'm like, what's happening at home?
So sometimes life just lets you be an expert at something,
it's
right?
True. It's true.
And so, okay, so you're going to help frenzied families. I would say this is an accurate description of so many of our families today. And as ministers, we're trying to help them and serve them, but they don't even really have a lot of time to even pay attention to what we're trying to do. So let's start with that. Families are living through crazy schedules. It feels like a merry-go-round going 100 miles an hour, and they can't stop it. So why are they so crazy? What's the heart behind the craziness? Why do we feel like we need to busy ourselves?
Yeah, I think it's complicated to answer, right? I mean, it's a complex situation. There's always one family has a story, and here's what's going on with them, and so on. But I would say that the fundamental issue is that people believe that busyness is better. That if I keep moving faster, and if I keep going, and I don't leave any gaps, I'm not wasting any time, I'm actually being a better steward somehow. Perhaps it will lead to better things. Maybe my kids will experience something better than I had when I was a kid, or they won't get into trouble. But somehow busyness and keeping our schedules so full that our character starts to fall apart actually is somehow better.
Are we avoiding intimacy?
I think so. I mean, the fact that you and I could sit across from one another, take some time, look each other in the eye. We don't have our phones out. We're just talking and getting to know each other. Gives us space to be able to talk about what's really going on behind the facade, right? Because I have fears. I have some guilt probably around things I'm not doing great and I really want to get better at. I've got some pride about sharing that. But when we sit together, somehow I'm able to pull back the layers a little bit and know that you care about me and you trust me and you hope the best for me. And so we can talk about both what's going good, but also where we're struggling. And when we think that busyness is better, we miss out on going deep like that.
Yeah, so what you just said, what you just described sounded amazing. So why would I want to avoid it?
I think because the fact that when we start to peel back the layers, we realize we're not perfect. You know, we want so desperately to be all-knowing, right? So we all have iPhones, smartphones, you know, so we have access to Google's insights all the time. We want to be omnipresent, right? We want to be everywhere all at the same time. We've got text, chat, Facebook Messenger, we've got phones, we've got email, you know, we're constantly connected. And we want to make sure that for some reason it sounds like we want to be like God. Wait, I've heard this somewhere. And so as I think back, the pride that came up when God said, no, this is the way the rhythm works. This is the way of what it means to be in close, unbroken connection with me. I'll take care of being omniscient. I'll take care of being all-powerful. I'll take care of being present everywhere. And you be human and be made in my image. That's a different kind of way of life.
So, what role does the Sabbath have in serving frenzied families? That in some way, there's part of this solution has to be teaching them to honor that and to understand the importance of the Sabbath.
Totally. Yeah, every family's familiar with timeouts. Somebody does something bad, you're in a timeout, go sit over there. In some ways, that's a rest. It's a Sabbath. It's go reset. Go sit over in the corner and reset. But that's not the same as what Scripture's talking about with the Sabbath. So we know that in creation, God, He's got the way that the world works is that there's day and there's night, and there's creation and there's pause, and then there's after 6 days there's this day of rest. But He also commissions Adam and Eve to go do some stuff. Go be fruitful. Go work. Go create. Right? There's stuff going on. But then there's this rhythm, and that pattern gets set from the very beginning. I think some of us get confused at the purpose of Sabbath, that somehow we're putting a time out. Like, okay, fine, I was busy all week, and now I just got to go sit in the corner and lick my wounds from the week or something, and then go back into the day. Some of us replace Sabbath with church, which church can be a wonderful place of Sabbath, but it can also be a place of a lot of activity and a lot of frenzied behaviors. And some of the emotional, relational problems that we have with people, they all come out at church. Maybe not. Maybe it's my church. I don't know. Maybe your church doesn't do that. But it's fascinating, right? So when we think about Sabbath, we talk about it like it's this thing. Sabbath, honor the Sabbath. But what the Lord said was, honor the Sabbath, because He was saying, honor the Lord of the Sabbath. And when we get below the layers, the Sabbath is really about honoring Him, worshiping Him, getting back to center the way that He wired us and created us, to know that we're fully loved unconditionally, to know that we have a purpose in the world, to get right with Him, to confess sin, to experience community, whatever that will refresh us and restore us so that we can honor Him then and all throughout the week.
And isn't it true, Sabbath, it's not a suggestion, it's a commandment.
Yeah.
Why? Why is it so necessary for a family to have a rhythm that where they need to stop regularly and acknowledge God? How does that keep us from being frenzied?
Well, it cuts against the pride that we think that we can just go and go and go, that we have unlimited batteries. How many of us live on less sleep than we know is best for us? Because it's kind of in the way. Sleeping's in the way. How many of us don't sit down for a slow meal because, it just takes too long? I actually got a survey from some restaurant somewhere that asked, how do you choose the restaurant you go to? Is it because they have online ordering, or is it because it's delivery, or you don't have time to come into the place? And I'm like, people are picking up on the fact that we are just going and going and going. As I think about the Sabbath, for families, to basically reflect back and carve out this space where they go, no, why are we doing this? We're being very intentional. We're pulling back from frenzied activities, things that have filled our calendar that we haven't been thoughtful about, that maybe have crept in and we allowed them to creep in. Or we just say, let's just start somewhere. Let's just carve out some space where we say we're going to meet with each other and with God, and that can look a lot of different ways. We could go on a picnic. We could go for a hike. We could, I don't know what circles you run in, but you could go to a movie. You could go play golf. You could go to the church service. You could sing hymns at home. You could draw. There's a lot of things that could be done that would rekindle that unbroken relationship with God, not because we're earning that or building or repairing that ourselves, but because God has already said, if you honor the Sabbath, I will restore what's broken.
Congratulations. You just talked on the Sabbath for like 3 or 4 minutes, and you didn't mention Chick-fil-A once. Isn't it true that we always have to say Chick-fil-A?
Yeah, Chick-fil-A.
Now I'm going to go ahead and say it.
There you go. Yeah, if you want to honor the Sabbath, be sure to check out Chick-fil-A.
They close every Sunday, and they make more money than everybody else.
You could do.
God blesses them.
That's got to be it. Yeah, I'm curious about that word blessing. That's a whole different conversation.
Okay, I wish I had more time to give you everything, but let's do this. If Deuteronomy 6 teaches us to teach our kids as we go, and it does, that's part of that, how do we fuse faith into this frenzy? Because, there's 2 ways we could do it. We could either kind of condemn people for their frenziness, which we should speak into it, right? But at the same time, we could also inspire them to try to find a way to bring faith into the frenzy.
Totally. Yeah, so I would say that if you as an individual are not actively paying attention to the character formation of your own life, your own soul, in the way of Christ, it's not going to happen in your home because you implemented something on an app or a take-home page from the church or some book you found. It's going to come because of the kind of person that you are and who you're becoming. So Colossians 3:17, right? Whatever you do in word or deed, do it all in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, giving thanks to the Father through him. You're like, okay, so we're to do it as if my name tag says Jesus. Now, the truth is, a lot of us are like, well, we got to fill up our time because we're so bored. Well, why are we bored? Probably because we have some fears and some issues and some stuff that we want to go meet this need. I want to go create. I want to go feel loved. I want to go experience life to the full, but I'm not, so I'm bored, which is just a symptom that the legitimate needs I have are not being met. Well, where do we start talking about the legitimate parts of us that are made to be like Christ, made to honor and reflect the image of God? So you go back to Colossians 3 and you say, okay, whatever we do, whether we're buying crayons at the Walmart or whether we're dropping somebody off in the rain or we're helping an old lady across the street or we're serving at the church or we're, just taking a nap, whatever we're doing is to be as if Christ was doing it. And so we need to take that into our daily rhythms of life. There was a speaker here last night at D6 who just did a fantastic job saying, whatever I do, if I'm gonna go get a haircut, what would it be like to invite Christ to join me and my kid as we go get the haircut? And I thought, that's what it's really about. And then how do you reflect that in every moment? Well, you gotta know who Christ is. And you've gotta love him and serve him and let him constantly through the Holy Spirit transform you from the inside out. And that's what's gonna happen with homes. They're gonna get changed from the inside out.
Okay, so do you have a project or anything else? Share with us what you got going on that you can share with us about.
Man.
Share with us about Slingshot, whatever you want to say.
Oh, yeah. So I started working for Slingshot Group out of California, and we're a nationwide ministry partner. We do staffing and coaching, and we have a proven relational process that we use that just points people, churches, nonprofits, and connects them with candidates who are just awesome people who would be a great fit in that particular church. And so we allow God to do his work to see who's going to show up and be a fit for a church, but then also how do we take leaders to the next level, ministries to the next level, and we're willing to just walk with any church and help them.
If somebody's listening, thinking it's time potentially for transition, you'd be a great resource to reach out to.
Yeah, happy to contact. You can find me easily online. Slingshot.org is always available too, and then I've also been thinking about doing a follow-up to Relational Children's Ministry.
Come on.
Because I think that we need to figure out how do you take these principles in a church, how do we take them home in a different way so that we help parents figure out how to become a family of faith. And so I'm trying to put together a book called Unscripted. Now, nobody take that title. Okay?
No, it's over.
All right. Phew. So Unscripted, because that's really how it happens. It doesn't happen because of systematic formula or we follow this checklist. Yeah. It happens one day at a time, moment by moment, but it's our posture, our heart, our attitude, our character, every moment, every day, whatever we're doing.
I love it. Thank you so much for being with us, sir. You have been awesome. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeremy. Glad to be here again.
Are you looking for the right conference to attend this year? The D6 Conference is a family ministry conference designed for your entire ministry team. Come hear from over 30 speakers and network with churches that share your passion for reaching families. Family ministry isn't just another program. It's one of the most important things your church can do to make a difference in your city. At the D6 Conference, you'll be inspired and equipped to take your family ministry to the next level. To learn more about the D6 Conference, just go to d6conference.com.
Thank you, Dan, for that amazing interview. Just listening to that makes me want to go to Chicago and visit you. So give me a text, buddy. Let's plan a trip. Take me to a Cubs game And we can talk more about Frenzied families, man. Thanks for your time. Listen, Dan's been on our podcast a lot, and he's been a part of D6 for a while.
Very insightful. And, frenziness is another term for what number one questions we get is, how do we do family ministry in a very busy world? But that's what people want to know. So very, very insightful area.
And just like Dan said, you just got to embrace it.
Yeah.
You can't. What we've done for way too long is we tried to fight the frenzy, and man, we just got to embrace and serve in the midst of the frenzy. Great encouragement, Dan.
Well, Deuteronomy 6 has always been a way of life. It doesn't say build anything new into your calendar. It says, as you do life, do this.
Or don't get mad at parents because they don't always come to your stuff.
Yes.
Maybe you could just join them in their word a little too,
That's right.
Just a thought. Just a tidbit, Ron.
Yes.
All right. So now we have Miss Pauline Dillard. We teased this pretty well in the front, so I don't think we need a whole lot of introduction here. Pauline ministers to new moms and dads through not just the good, but also the struggles that they go through. And she has a lot to say about how the church can step into some of the great pain that new moms and dads feel. Oh, man, my guest is Dr. Pauline Dillard. She's the executive director and CEO of Dunamis. Did I do that right? Dunamis Center Ministries in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Welcome. Thank you for being with us.
You're welcome. I'm happy to be here.
It says here you have a background in childbirth education, traumatic birth, and postpartum issues.
Correct.
So many people deal with that. I'm so excited that you're out there helping them. She also does premarital and marriage intensives. Mm-hmm. All of the services offered through the Dunamis. Sometimes you just meet a word that just beats you up. Center Ministries or Christ-centered, heart connecting, and marriage focused.
Yes.
She's particularly interested in helping churches to be better care for new moms and dads, and we have people listening to this that are helping families with new moms and dads. So this is perfect.
Yes.
So let's start with this. What are the main things a new mom needs to hear from our ministries?
A lot of times it isn't even really about so much what they hear from us as what we do for them. We say a lot, but is there the follow through? And so when I'm talking to new moms, they're talking a lot about isolation, being left alone, not having relationship or connection. And I'm hearing from them that even the church isn't really there for them. They bring meals for a week or two, and then that's kind of it. So then they feel very dropped. So what we want to do is be there for them more than just talk, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there are some times when a new mom goes through, someone goes through a miscarriage.
Yes.
Or goes through a postpartum.
Yes.
And they either don't know how or don't want to tell people.
That's true, and a lot of times they're not talking about it because they're not getting any kind of caring response. Mm-hmm. We know that the Bible tells us to mourn with those who mourn, but we're not really very good at it in the American culture in general. So then when somebody loses a baby, it comes very close to home for a lot of moms and a lot of dads, and even older people have had loss, and they don't know what to do because nobody really helped them with it. So really, I would just say the very first thing to say to anybody is just, I am so sorry that you had to go through this. And they hear too much from Christians about, well, the Bible says, or you should trust God. They know that in their head, but at that moment their heart is shattered. So we want to just be very careful with their heart and let them know that they're safe with their emotion, because we are emotional people. And when they have a safe place to tell their story, to enter into their story is what we need to do, we can slowly start to say, well, God is there for you and we need to reconnect to your source. But they don't want to hear any of that until they know that we've really cared for them.
And I guess after, if in public venues, we regularly talk about, hey, we love and understand and care for and grieve with people who are going through these issues. At some point, that might make them build some trust and say, you know what, I think I can tell somebody from this church. It seems like they care.
Yes, and I've spoken a lot about, in particular, trauma even after cesareans, pregnancy loss, and I've worked with moms who've had stillbirths. And they all have, in the same way, a element of, why did God allow this to happen to me? And the only answer really is, I don't know. I really don't know, because I don't know why you and not somebody else. And when I say, I don't know, but I care that you're hurting, they then want to talk to more. They will open up more about it, and they just need a safe place to have their story valued first and foremost. And then if they're really angry with God, to allow that to happen, and then to help them to forgive them, God even sometimes, for this happening, so they can reconnect to their source and then grow from there.
What about dads?
Dads go through trauma too, and not to the level of the moms per se. They deal with it very differently than women do. Men deal with it very differently. And what we tend to see men do is get busier. Like, they like to go to work more. They don't know what to do with emotion. So we're trying to create safer places, not just me, other ministries, other counselors, for the men to know that it's okay to feel and express their grief as well, that they had a hope for a child and they lost that hope, or they had a hope for a really good healthy birth and they lost that too. So there's a lot happening even in the psych realm right now with caring for dads who've had trauma and allowing them a safe place as well to express that.
So you are definitely a resource for churches whose families have gone through some kind of trauma involving birth or stillbirth or the loss of a child.
We are a source for that, and I actually do get phone calls from all over the United States, because there's very few counselors in particular who understand the post-trauma birth piece. We just want to go, oh, well, you had a cesarean, get over it, you have a healthy baby. But they have a loss there because they had a hope and a dream for how that birth would go. And they're very traumatized, much like rape survivors, through that process, because it's a very sexual thing to have a baby, and that sexuality is attacked or controlled or manipulated in some form.
Okay. Well, tell us about your resources. I want to make sure we get this
We
out
are
there.
right there at the point for this. This is Won't Somebody Please Hear Me? I am happy I have a healthy baby. It's the rest of it that sucked. Okay, so
that's quite a title. I love that.
I know, and moms love this title, because one of the worst things you can say to a mom who's had a cesarean and had trauma from it, not all moms do, is, oh, just be happy you have a healthy baby. And that discounts her as a human being. It discounts her as a feeling, emotional person who needs love and care as well. So I've been actually out speaking about this topic for the last few years, trying to bring that hope and that healing to people. And when they hear me on the radio, I do get calls from all over. People can order this book at our website, which is dunamascenter.com. That's DUNAMAS center.com. Or this one is actually on Amazon Kindle right now as well. And then what I'm promoting here is ways for churches to actually care for a new family, regardless of the outcome. And just in general, new moms and dads need to be cared for. So the church will bring them that meal, but that's kind of it. And what I heard when I did the research on it from a lot of Christian moms and dads was everybody rushed in the first week or two, and then everybody rushed out. And it was just crash. And then the depression set in, and the isolation, and the adjustment disorders. So one of the resources we have, and this is a free resource, either it'll be a free download on our website, and or you can pick it up here if you're at D6. And it's a post-birth care plan for a discerning childbirth. And this particular little resource, just people can fill out how they'd like somebody to help them after they have a baby. If somebody comes in and says, what can I do to help you? You just have to hand them the book. And it has the day and the jobs you want done that day, and then where everything is in my house, how to use things, how to find things. So if I'm asleep or I'm just like too overwhelmed that day, I can just hand you the book, and you can figure out what I need.
That's wonderful. So please give them the website one more time. I want to make sure they get it.
Okay, it's dunamascenter.com. That's DUNAMAS center.com.
I'm glad you did that. Thank you so much for being with us. This has been amazing. I told you it would go by fast. It's already gone.
Is it already gone?
It's amazing.
Wow, we didn't even get to everything. But one
well, talk to us. We'll take a few
really
more minutes.
quick
Sure.
resource that we just came up with. This will also be a download on the website, but it's also here at our table. It's called Dads Be Confident in Childbirth: 3 Things Christian Men Don't Understand About Their Biblical Role in Childbirth That Leaves Them Feeling Scared and ineffective.
Wow.
And it's an introduction to their spiritual role and authority as a dad through the pregnancy, through the birth, through the decision making, how to pray for your wife, and then it just really introduces the men in the church to how very important they are to this whole process.
I love that. I don't think there's enough stuff for dads that speak like that to them.
Yeah, most of the time dads are kind of told just sit in the corner and be quiet while the almighty birthing goddess woman does her thing. And we know that's not Christian. So those are some of our resources, and these two are available for free. The Won't Somebody Please Hear Me can be ordered on our website as well, or you can get the Amazon Kindle version.
Well, thank you so much
You're
for
very
being
welcome.
with us.
I enjoyed it.
You know, Jeremy, I mentioned this on the front end, but our very first pregnancy ended in miscarriage between my wife and I. And we didn't know anybody who had ever experienced it. And we were just kind of like really in, you know, the throes of sorrow, you know, not understanding, the confusion, the hurt, you know. And the body of Christ showed up. I mean, people came out of the woodwork literally and says, hey, this happened to me, this happened to me. And it became the most encouraging. They didn't say anything monumental. They weren't a counselor. They were a comfort. And they literally just came out and they just hugged us and they said, hey, we've been where you have. I kid you not, probably 10 or 12 couples came out and said, hey, we just want to encourage you, we want to pray with you. We know what you're walking. And I just want, if you don't have the insight Pauline does, if you'll just do those steps, it will mean something significant to the couple who's going through those kinds of issues. Just be there with them.
And one of the first struggles that a couple who goes through this faces is, do we tell people?
Yeah.
Do we make this known, or do we keep it to ourselves? And I think if a church had a ministry like Pauline is referring to, and they just on a semi-regular basis spoke out loud about this, I think it would free up couples to say, you know what, I know somewhere we can go and talk about this where we can feel safe and we can get some encouragement. We don't have to tell the whole world, but we can tell someone.
That's right.
So that we don't completely keep it to ourselves.
That's right.
So thanks to Pauline for teaching us as churches and ministers how to do that in a better way. And thanks for being a part of the D6 podcast, not podcast, but podcast. And you guys as well for listening. If you've made it all the way to the end, that means you are loyal listeners, and we very much love and appreciate you.
And you've ordered your Help My Game Stink book, and you're ready for next week. And
for your sissy summer camp, that's going to be all about, I mean, there's no bugs or, I mean, if you really want to do summer camp and be cutting edge, guys, just tell kids to bring a blanket and go lay down in the woods.
That's right.
That's
just
what they need to do.
A lean-to you make out of the woods. I mean, the branches and the leaves. You make it yourself.
What are we going to do today for camp, Mr. and Mrs. Minister? Well, you're going to whittle a piece of wood, read the Bible. Enjoy.
That's right.
What they need to do.
No fun. We don't have fun having time serving God.
But if you want to not do that, I guess you can order Help My Game Stink. And if you want the dads in your church to like you, you can order the Father's Day book.
Yeah.
And if you want me and Ron to like you, you can listen to our podcast next week when we will have
Lena Wooten. Very upbeat. You know, that is not a boring interview.
No. Lena is the marketing mastermind behind D6 Family, but more than that, her and her husband have been ministers in the church for quite a long time, and lots of people listening know Lena. If you don't know Lena, you need to. She'll be with us next week. And Lena her job is to look at the landscape of ministry resources. And so we've asked her to give us a ministry resource roundup. I want to let you know, we've specifically said, and Lena was very happy to do this, this isn't going to be a D6 commercial. We've said, hey, not just D6 stuff. We want to know all the resources you see out there in the world that people would need to know. And you know what? That's a good thing. We all need to stay up on resources. So join us next week with Lena Wooten. We'll be talking about a resource roundup. We'll see you then.
And we've got the summer schedule, one interview through the rest of the summer. And that begins next week. So
that's right.
Look
We are
to
making that transition. All right. You guys have a great week of ministry.
You've been listening to the D6 Podcast. You can learn more about D6 at d6family.com. And if you're a minister, we invite you to join the D6 Leader Network by going to d6leader.net.